Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alasdair Gold. How are you?
Not great after a North London derby defeat, but slightly cheered by your fantastic new haircut, which is surprising when I saw it. Looking very sharp, but unfortunately not enough to get me through what I witnessed last night. I hate going to the Emirates. I really do. It's just like it always brings pain. It's not the greatest media seating area either. If I'm going to be man getting free ticket to match moans about match viewing experience. I know that's not going to get any sympathy from anyone, but everyone just stands up in front of the press box. You can't see what's happening. It's a very difficult game to report on from that. But more so the fact that it was just utterly disappointing from a Spurs perspective. Just didn't play the Postecoglou way at all. And lo and behold, they lost the game. They didn't do exactly everything they did really well a week before against Liverpool. They kind of did the opposite against Arsenal, and the result exactly showed what that did for them.
Well, I suppose probably was, to be honest, the best game really for someone to be standing up in front of you, so you didn't have to witness pretty much all of it. But yeah, another defeat for Spurs. They just never seems to go well at all at the Emirates. I mean, have you only seen one win there reporting? I take it that was the cup semi or the cup quarter, whatever it was, when Delhi scored the chip.
Yes, I think so.
2018, 2019, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, all started so well for Spurs, going in front through Son Heung-min, 25 minutes, then Arsenal getting 2 goals in the space of 4 minutes just before half time to really, turn the game in their favour. And just looking back at the highlights, Spurs really didn't threaten in the second half. It was only that attempt, I think it was a cross, wasn't it? A miss-hit cross from Porro.
Yeah.
That almost snuck in, but just hit the outside of David Raya's post. So that means Spurs are 13th in the Premier League table, 11 defeats already this season. It's not looking good.
No, it's there's of course still the context of it all. It did make me chuckle in the week when various media outlets were referring to depleted Arsenal taking on Tottenham, and it's like, well, no, not really. They've got a few players out, but Spurs still have ridiculous amounts of players out. Although they did have Richarlison back. Your man was back and made a little bit of an impact when he came on, and he'll get sharper, hopefully. But it's the results are not good enough. I mean, the stats are pretty dreadful, really, when you look at them. I've got them down here somewhere. They've won 1 of their past 9 Premier League matches, losing 6 of them. Only Leicester and Southampton have earned fewer points than the 5 Spurs have got during that run. And this is the joint most amount of games they've lost by this part of a campaign in the Premier League, along with the 97-98 season, 2003-2004 season, and 2008-9 season. And another game where they've thrown away the lead. They've thrown away 18 points from leading positions in the Premier League this season. Only Fulham have thrown away more. So, yeah, it's not good enough. There is a context to it. I do believe that. It's just the more defeats there are, the more frustrating and difficult it is to kind of see that players like, Kulusevski and Solanke would just look knackered. They're the players that Postecoglou's looking to kind of really drive the football with the way they run and press and their strength. And both of them had no strength. Decky just kept losing the ball constantly. It was probably his worst performance of the season. Solanke just got bullied quite a lot of it by Gabriel and Saliba. He's kind of ploughing a lone furrow up there. And you're looking to 2 18-year-olds as your best players on the day. And that shouldn't be happening.
No, but it's been happening for quite a few weeks now with Gray and Bergvall, the standout players, and the same goes for Jed Spence. But Kulusevski and Solanke are probably the 2 players, your bankers really.
Yeah.
They're the 2 players Postecoglou knows he's going to get something from game in, game out. 2 players he can rely on, and when they're not contributing and others around them aren't as well, then he's only going to go one way. And I mean, Decky had a chance early on prior to the goal, forced Raya into a save. I mean, Solanke was at the back post. I mean, looking at you could maybe squared it, but I think when you're in that position, you're just going for goal anyway, full focus on the goal. So can't really blame him for that. And Solanke, surprising really, because I can remember when we were at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the first North London derby of the season, and a lot of the Arsenal reporters were telling us Solanke always gives Saliba a game where quite a lot of strikers in the Premier League do struggle against him. And the same for Gabriel. I mean, they're two top quality centre backs, but Solanke does, give them a few worries in games, but just not to be last night. And unfortunately for Dom Solanke, a known goal to his name.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate own goal, really. He didn't know much about it. There's nothing he could really do about it. But yeah, and the thing they kept doing with Solanke as well, they kept lumping the ball up high to him and long. And you're thinking, he's so good with the ball at his feet, kind of thing. If he's going to have his back to defence and the ball's at his feet, that's fine. But to kind of keep lumping it up in the air where he's going to win the odd one. But, that's a strong centre-back pairing dealing with aerial stuff. That's kind of their bread and butter. So I didn't get that. I think I've got the stats here for some of those players that normally are so reliable. Let's have a look. I've got it here somewhere. It was, Decky, Kulusevski dispossessed 4 times and had 5 unsuccessful touches. And it was just bouncing off him. Sonny, 3 times he had the ball taken away from him and lost the ball himself twice. Solanke, 3 loose touches that gave the ball back to Arsenal as well. This is the problem, isn't it? Is when you've got the senior players aren't doing the business, 2 18-year-olds just can't take it. And Jed Spence, I keep kind of forgetting or not leaving him out when I'm talking about the 18-year-olds, but I thought Jed was overall pretty consistent. They kept swarming around him a lot, the Arsenal players, but on the whole, he dealt with it pretty well. But then we talk about senior players, and the one moment where he gets the ball out from a tight situation, gives it to Basuma. Basuma turns into a crowd of Arsenal players, loses the ball, they break away and score the second goal. So there's definitely an element with, we've spoken about it in recent weeks about the failure of the summer window was to not bring in more ready-made players for him. And this is absolutely biting them now because they're having to trust senior players who are struggling to find form and consistency. And it just very little leadership, it feels like, is happening on the pitch. Sonny popped up with a goal, which was important, although not entirely sure I liked the shushing the crowd thing that early in the game. It always going to come back to bite you, a bit like it did with Eric Dyer a few years back. But yeah, they just need that little bit kind of experience in there and know-how. And we're 16 days into a January transfer window, and it's beggars belief really that they haven't addressed any of the really important parts of the squad that needed addressing.
Yeah, it just comes across now as we'll wait until the 3 centre-backs come back and then all of a sudden it's fine. We don't need to bring in a new centre-back. But as we've said, there's no guarantee these 3 centre-backs come back and, play every game between now and the end of the season. The way it's gone for Spurs so far, they'll come back. It'll be Gray and Dragusin will get injured or something like that. So there needs to be some options there. And yeah, there were quick movers last year in the market, bringing Dragusin and Timo Werner in within the first 2 weeks. But this year, just the one signing so far. And it goes, it's the same for a number of clubs in the Premier League. January's not really a busy market. Well, it certainly wasn't last year because I think everyone was so, worried about potentially overspending and points deductions and that, what could come your way. But it's been quiet once again. But for Spurs, it was evident like a month, 6 weeks before they need to bring these players in, and to be halfway through the window now, just the goalkeeper, who potentially you could have got away without bringing in the keeper. Certainly not, I wouldn't say top of the priority list. Centre back quite clearly is. But yeah, Spurs just desperately need those incomings and fast.
Yeah, Romero and Van der Ven both injured on December the 8th. Ben Davies 3 days before that as well. So they've had all that time to try to get something in place. And I agree with you. I wouldn't be stunned if we get to a scenario where it's looked at as, well, they're all coming back now. So, yeah, you're just going to end up with a player who's not going to play. And who wants to come and do that? But it's like, but something should have been lined up for the first week of the window. That's the point. I know it's a difficult window. We speak about this enough. We're constantly going on about that. And like you said, you can see that in the lack of activity. But other teams have reacted to the issues in their squad. They have. They've moved quickly. And if you've got to pay over the odds because it's a difficult time of, to get signings in, you've got to pay over the odds because your team's in a dire straits, really, in terms of you're actually causing more damage to the team with inactivity than you are, just not going for it. I find it all odd. And look, Kinski's a terrific signing. We'll talk about him a little bit, about what he did last night and the one or two kind of negatives to it, but actually on the whole, I still thought it was quite positive from him. And I think he'll be terrific. But exactly like you said, he's kind of an important part of the building block going forward, but you wouldn't say was a priority for this window. The priority for me was a centre-back, and probably a centre-back that could play left-back as well. And also, we can't get away from the fact Spurs have one fit centre-back and no fit left-backs. It's ridiculous. How is that not the area? You had to bring someone in. And also up front, they needed more attacking options. That was something that I don't think Postecoglou has said enough in the last few weeks. That's what he's wanted. Oh my goodness, poor Postecoglou though. The other day in the press conference, hearing him say the words, yes, the players need help, but the club are working hard and it's a difficult window. I feel like I've heard that phrase so many times. The club are working hard, but it's a difficult time. It's like, oh my goodness. He just needs help. He does. Yes, there's going to be some frustrations with him. And yes, the results are not good enough. Absolutely not good enough. And yes, other managers with far grander CVs have, got turfed out of Spurs and far better positions in the league. Absolutely. However, he's just received so little help in terms of trying to get out of a situation that has occurred, like a real, ridiculous spate of injuries. A couple maybe down to his methods, but the bulk not. It's just mad. I was looking at the signings that have been brought in this season, aside from Solanke, who was an excellent signing. Aside from Solanke, the average age of players brought in is 18.8. That's the average age. So how is that helping the squad for now, kind of thing? It's mad. And don't get me wrong, Bergvall and Gray are going to be brilliant, and I can't wait to see them as central midfielders playing together. They could be the real future of this midfield. But right now, give him some help. Give him some players back, and then we'll kind of see how he goes along. And that, at least, we'll talk about it in a bit, but it does seem to be that he's got the club's backing right now, but they need to back him with signings.
Yeah, very much so. We'll speak about Arsenal's 2 goals now. First one, certainly controversial when you're looking at it. The fact that the ball hit Trossard and a corner was given, and the referee, having a look from the angle behind the goal, the referee's like bang in line with it as well. So surely he could see that. And then, typical of Arsenal to go and score directly from that corner. As I said at the start of the show, really unfortunate for Solanke, just because Gabriel's just trying to keep the ball alive there by heading it back across goal. Strikes Solanke and goes in. Kinski was coming off his line, and then he just goes into a body of players, and then there's just this big gap for the ball to go in. But just going back to the corner, for me, it's just so frustrating that you have VAR and you can't VAR can't go right, it's goal kick, because then you're getting into the situation where, well, if you're doing that, you've got to do that for pretty much every single foul, and then all of a sudden VAR's reffing the game, not the referee.
Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? It's going back to a previous phase of play, albeit one that ended up influencing the next phase of play, because the next phase of play wouldn't have existed. But Yeah, I mean, that should be picked up by the officials. It's so kind of everyone around there thought it had gone off for a goal kick. I think everyone was just surprised when he pointed for the corner. And even the corner itself, I think Dragishin gets most of the header on that over Gabriel. I actually think he kind of gets more of it, and just, of course, it's going to hit a Spurs player and trickle over the line. And yeah, I mean, Postecoglou afterwards was very much like, it was wrong. Shouldn't have been a corner. However, I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I've got to look at my team, and very much they didn't play in the way that I set them up to play. So he wasn't using it as an excuse, but absolutely it was a ridiculous mistake. And what I would say about Spurs, they were pushing their luck in terms of giving away so many free kicks and corners. It's like, what's that? We're going to play the team that is best at set pieces in the Premier League. Let's give them every possible chance to score from one. Then there were so many daft tackles. I mean, people like Kulusevski a couple of times just barged into the back of Arsenal players for it was never even going to get near the ball. So it ended up again biting them on the backside, even though it was, of course, the one that shouldn't have even been a set piece.
Yeah, and then the second goal. Again, it's just, I think we've said it a few times this season, just not a good one to concede from a Spurs perspective, and that's Ibasuma turning into trouble on the halfway line, surrounded by Arsenal players. Great work from Thomas Partey, obviously, to win the ball from him, and that just sets Odegaard free to play in Trossard. Should Kinski have maybe done better for that one? Yeah. I mean, just looking at it, it's just where it bounces, I think. Just bounces right in front of him, which makes it difficult. I mean, Trossard's hit it well, but I think Kinski will probably feel he should have done better with that one.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate bounce.
Yeah.
It is. It's I don't know if it was like a bobble on the surface or whether it was just a natural bounce. I don't know, but it did kick up quite a bit. But still, yeah, as a goalkeeper and your reaction times and things like that, you'd still want a stronger hand that you got on it, because he did get fingertips on it, really, and it just didn't divert it away from the goal. And yes, I would imagine any player at that level is probably ultra critical of themselves, and I'm sure he was probably replaying that over and over again in his head, that night, and when he would lay there in bed thinking about it. Just unfortunate, because, like I said, that was just one of two moments for me where he didn't particularly cover himself in glory. It was that one, and the one where Havertz tackled him, did a slide tackle. It was kind of a slide tackle. He just got to the ball, but as he was kind of falling down, Kinski managed to get the ball back at the second attempt. So they were the only two moments. Other than that, I actually thought his distribution was good. I looked at the percentages, far better than David Raya's. His passes were finding the mark a lot more. And also, I actually thought from set pieces, apart from, of course, like you say, kind of getting boxed in a little bit for the goal, he was quite dominant. He made 4 punches, came out and really tried to, probably more so than Vicario's been in those situations as well. So there's still absolutely loads of potential with him, and also I think an ability to play in the present. But yeah, I mean, he couldn't have had more of a baptism of fire, could he? Coming in Liverpool in a semi-final in front of 60,000 or so people, going to Tamworth and facing a ridiculous, huge, long throw on an artificial pitch, and then a North London derby at the Emirates. That will forge him. He will become a much stronger kind of player and goalkeeper just for that first week of football, really.
I think that's what you probably want as a new player, thrown in at the deep end a bit, coming into these big matches and looking to make your mark. And that's exactly what it has done. I mean, yesterday, a couple of unfortunate things for him in the game, but overall in the 3 games he's been absolutely fantastic. And he's certainly someone who can challenge Vicario for that number 1 spot. And he's going to have a decent run of games until Vicario comes back. Obviously can't play in the Europa League this month, the Hoffenheim and Elfsborg games. But no, really impressed with Kinski since he's arrived at the club, and it'd be just nice to talk about a couple more new signings making an impact, I suppose.
Well, this is it. It's like we've got no issue with the signing. The signing itself is great. Yeah. It's a really exciting signing, but it should have been done as part of sorting out priorities as well. That deal for the Summit is, let's be honest, what was it, 12.5 million overall, which includes add-ons. That's the kind of deal that shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of your window. That should be the stuff that's almost, I don't want to be kind of glib about it, but it should almost be like small change in terms of what he's going to be worth. And it's just the kind of thing that is investment. You just know it is. It's not even bailing out or helping a team right now. That is an investment for a player he's already probably worth double that just from the 3 performances so far, because he's now a tested Premier League player. But yeah, it's just so frustrating that we're at this stage and some of the glaring stuff has not been fixed yet.
Yeah, so second half, Ange made double change, Basuma and Sarr making way for James Maddison and Brendan Johnson. That meant Bergvall dropped into the number 6 role, Decky in midfield as well. I mean, reading Ange's post-match comments, he was saying Spurs were too passive in the first half. I think he says they were better in the second half. I take it they went a lot better, maybe just slightly better.
Yeah, it's one of those difficult ones. You could say, they had more of the ball, they had more control in a way, but they didn't create much. They probably created more in the first half than they did second half. It was very much a pre-Postecoglou performance. It was, let's all sit back, let's panic a bit with the ball rather than trying to play it out nicely. Let's let the opposition press get to us, and we'll maybe get a couple of chances on the break. It was like, we've seen that over the years, and it hasn't worked. And that has been one of the things about Spurs this season. You know, they've beaten the likes of Man City twice, Man United, Liverpool, Villa. They've beaten these kind of tougher teams because they've gone at them. They haven't just sat back and meekly hoped for an opportunity. And that's kind of what they did at the Emirates. And they regressed and paid the price for it. Look, they didn't get absolutely destroyed, torn apart. I would say there were a few chances first half, especially that Arsenal should have done better with. I remember Odegaard putting one wide when he really should have put it on target. But it just, it was a nothing-y performance. It was a tired-looking performance. It was the crowd, and I can speak. The biggest shame about it all was that, speaking to our Arsenal reporters and the like, there's a kind of a feeling that the atmosphere at Arsenal has been like kind of dipping a little bit recently, and apparently it wasn't good against United, and there was a little bit of feeling that if Spurs could score first, which they did, then it would all, go a bit horribly wrong and the crowd might turn and things like that. But Spurs never really took advantage of that. Of course, yes, getting a dodgy corner that should never have been and equalising is going to get the crowd back up again. But yeah, the crowd never really turned. Other than there were a couple of shouts towards Sterling. He was getting a little bit of flack as well. I think it was a rare appearance for him. One thing that surprised me, I genuinely didn't know they did this. They sing about Postecoglou. It's not a very nice chant, but they sing about Postecoglou quite frequently.
How does that go? Shall I give us a
rendition?
Definitely
not. No. It's very unpleasant. No, I'm not going to sing that one. But yeah, I was just surprised that they were that fussed about Spurs. Spurs and Arsenal is 19 points between them right now. I'd be surprised that you're even that bothered about the manager of another team right now.
Yeah, a bit of a strange one. That I didn't actually realise that.
No idea.
So Ange then post-match press conference, very honest as ever in terms of the Tottenham performance. Certainly said it's not good enough where Spurs are in the table results, performances. Just looking at the table, it's so bad. 13th at the moment, potentially could be 15th going into Sunday's game at Everton, because Manchester United play Southampton tonight. You'd expect them to win, given Saints' form. Then Crystal Palace, who are same points as Spurs at the moment, they're at West Ham on Saturday. So if they get a point there, Spurs are 15th. Wow. Spurs have actually lost more this season than Everton.
Yeah. I love how surprised you are.
That's like how bad it is. And what I'll also say is West Ham, horrendous under Lopetegui.
Mm.
But then all of a sudden West Ham are now above Spurs by a couple of points.
I know. Spurs just haven't got the results.
Yeah.
It is. It's so poor. And he wasn't hiding from that Postecoglou afterwards. He said it needs to change. It's not good enough. It's absolutely, unacceptable, really. And they do. They need to start. Well, it needs to start this Sunday against a certain team in blue.
Yeah. Before we get onto that, we're gonna talk about our sponsors, NordVPN. Now, I'm sure last night you'd have wished you could have watched the game via NordVPN from a different country.
Honestly, that was absolutely what I needed to be. I needed to be anywhere but the Emirates. I needed to be sunny beach somewhere would have been lovely. Watching it using NordVPN on my phone and having the ability to switch off afterwards, turn away, go into the ocean, and probably just swim as far as I could, and just stop thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, that is the beauty of NordVPN, at least, is that you can head off abroad, watch things from back home, or even I could have been in the UK and watched something completely different from a foreign land instead, because of the ability to switch your device to thinking it's in a completely different country. And that also helps if I wanted to suddenly book airplane tickets to get away from Tottenham and N17. I could do that, and I could book it from a foreign country where it might be cheaper. I could book a hotel stay from a foreign country and it might be cheaper. I could book music concerts from another country and go and watch that rather than spending 2 hours watching Tottenham losing a North London derby. So yeah, plenty of uses for NordVPN, and that's not even to mention security aspects. Using public Wi-Fi that might be a little bit iffy, it can help lock up to your device to a certain degree with that respect as well. And of course, as you know, it is the fastest VPN in the world, NordVPN. No buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. And on top of all of that, we've got the best discount possible off your NordVPN plan. If you go to nordvpn.com/goldguest, our link will give you 4 extra months on top of the 2-year plan you'd normally get. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link, in case you just missed it there, is in the podcast episode description box.
So after last night's 2-1 defeat at Arsenal, Andrew's future, big talking point again, given the amount of games Spurs have lost this season, where they find themselves in the league table as well. You mentioned in your talking points earlier, and retains the full backing within Spurs with an understanding of the situation he's dealing with right now. The club are believed to be trying to put in the right structures and people around him, but he needs help on the pitch as well. If Spurs are to lose at Everton, there's Hoffenheim, Leicester coming up. I mean, what's going to happen? Did they just keep giving him the full backing?
Well, of course, no, really, because you can't keep losing games and see no upward trend. That's one thing. Obviously, they did win the 2 games before last night. Sunday's massive for me. Sunday, I think if they can go there and beat Arsenal, beat Everton, I think personally, that would start a run of 4 wins. I think then the games ahead, the 2 Europa League games and Leicester at home, on paper, our favourite expression, those should be games they should be winning. Hoffenheim having a dreadful season. I'm sure most people have seen. Is it Kramaric? I think it is, doing the interview. Not able to say what he truly wants, because I think in his words he would have got the biggest fine in Bundesliga history about the club. So they're having a nightmare time. And yes, I know there's people right now going, yes, Dr. Tottenham will see you right now. And, Elfsborg at home, Leicester at home. These should be games that Spurs are winning. And I know should's a big word right now. But if they could get through this period and get through it in a positive way, then I think momentum shifts. You suddenly go to Brentford and it's a completely different Tottenham. You've got players probably back as well in terms of, some of those injured centre-backs especially. And then likewise, you've got that big semi-final second leg at Anfield, which is going to be no easy feat. But yeah, of course he has to win. There's only right now, that's the sense, is that there is a full backing for him and support and an understanding that this situation is a bit just rubbish and he's trying to deal with it. And yeah, it was interesting kind of hearing this stuff about they're trying to put people in around him, whether that's as simple as the medical side of things. It could be, that we've seen a lot of re-injuries and he clearly has been unhappy with that aspect. You can tell that in press conferences and talking about like these kind of reviews that have been going on. in sorting out that side. It could be in terms of recruitment. I should stress that in my tweet I put out earlier about this, I kind of said, but they need help on the pitch. That's my opinion. That's that they've all these structures and stuff is great around him and the right people around him is fine, but he also needs to be given the right people on the pitch. That's a big thing. And as we've spoken about in this, like, yeah, I mean, we kind of even didn't really touch on them, but Archie Gray, fantastic, I thought, last night. Brilliant. Lucas Bergvall, brilliant last night. I thought probably Spurs' best player. Yet, expecting him to work wonders with these 18-year-olds when he clearly has so many areas of the pitch where he needs help. I mean, they're so lucky in a way that Jed Spence has shown that he can actually be a left back. But they didn't know that he was going to end up being a terrific left back. They've absolutely ridden their luck on that. And, I have no idea how Dragashin or Gray have not been broken yet. There's not been an injury there. They have played 90 minutes, pretty much both of them, every 3 days. Archie Gray, 120 minutes the other day at Tamworth. And, yeah, then you're never going to get the best version of them. And the same goes for a lot of the forward players as well. And that's the key. It's all very well supporting your manager, I guess, in terms of not getting rid of them, but then you also need to help them be a success. Otherwise, you're just going to keep circling around the same situation without any progress. And yeah, I do think, I said it earlier, definitely managers have gone for far less in terms of results and position in the table, or better, if you know what I mean. But yeah, right now he's got to turn it around, and I'm sorry for you, but hopefully it happens on Sunday.
I see some fans have mentioned possible relegation dogfight. I mean, do you see that?
No, I don't, because they're scoring goals. That's the thing, isn't it? That's you talk about that, I think, when a team is like just really struggling to do anything on a pitch, and we've seen Spurs at times have been like that in previous, like towards the end of other managerial reigns and things like that. But I feel like Spurs can score goals, and I think they'll score a lot of goals. I shouldn't even say this, I'm going to jinx it, aren't I? But I feel like they're going to score a lot of goals over the next 4, 5, 6 games or so, hopefully. And that'll be the thing. But also that'll be allied with centre-backs coming back and things like that as well. And no, I don't think it's going to be that kind of thing. Although it would be classic Spurs to do something ridiculous like getting themselves in a relegation fight while winning a trophy or two. And it's like, we kind of got what we wanted, but with a lot of pain and problems at the same time. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. But obviously we'll have to revisit that in about 3-4 months' time.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the case come May. I mean, Spurs are 24 points now? You take another 11 points and that's it, guaranteed safety. But I'm with you. I think they'll be fine. But the thing is, when you're losing, it becomes a habit. It's just the same as winning as well. And they just need to get a win at some point, whether that's against Everton, Hoffenheim, Leicester. And because, I mean, we saw it at the start of the season. The results were so up and down, playing well in a lot of games, but just not getting the results they deserved. And then from, end of September, things just clicked into place. It was about 6 or 7 wins on the trot, maybe, all competitions.
7, yeah.
It's a really, really good run, and that's exactly what they need. And I think Son said that after the game yesterday. They just need to get the wins and then get back into the winning way and just get back playing the football again. But it's a case of just getting that win.
Yeah, and they need players to step up. They do. I know some of them are tired, and I know that, but this is kind of when leaders kind of show, don't they? It's in the tough moments, not when everything's going well. And yes, Sonny scored, and yes, he came out, and he always fronts up after a defeat and says the things he kind of needs to say and all of that. But I do think they've missed Romero as well. I think Romero just being that kind of player that won't accept things on the pitch for what they are. Well, I was looking at Richarlison. Do you know that Spurs have? I think they've only lost once when Richarlison's played this season.
This season, yeah.
I think they've won. I'm guessing. I think I had these stats. I might have put them somewhere. I think they've won 5, drawn 1, and lost 1. I think he's only played 7 times.
Yeah, I think I was having a look at the numbers, and when he's played in the Premier League at home this season, Spurs have always scored 4 goals.
Really?
Yeah, Everton, West Ham, and Villa.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely bring something to the team, and it's the fight. That's what they miss sometimes, and they missed last night at times. He'll bring that, and even in a little cameo, you could see that, and he was holding the ball up well. He just wasn't using it well, and that's a rust thing. That's a lack of sharpness. But I do think even just having him back is something different for them to freshen it up, and whether it's as a winger, whether it's as a striker, just to give them something extra. And I mean, they're probably not going to. They're probably not going to start him at Everton. He's not ready to do that yet. You would imagine he'll get a half hour and they'll start building him up. Are you worried he's going to score against Everton?
Well, he did last season, didn't he? He scored two very good goals as well. Now I imagine it's just a case of, like you said, just building him up. Just don't want to throw him in too early, given the previous injury issues. Maybe he gets to start at Hoffenheim, and Solanke starts on the bench, and then maybe get some minutes at Leicester. Because I mean, if Son continues to struggle on the left, then surely you're gonna have to think about at some point, if it's not Richarlison, then maybe you throw Mikey Moore in.
Yeah, maybe. My only worry about Mikey, because I saw like some of the journalists are saying, "Oh, surprised he didn't come on at half time." With Maddison and who else came on? Oh, Johnson. I think that's unfortunately an indictment of Johnson's performance. I actually forgot he came on. He had an absolute stinker. He did. He kind of played into the whole narrative of what his critics say about him. He was just anonymous and just did nothing with the ball. Maddison wasn't a lot better, to be honest, but still. With Mikey Moore, had he come on as well, my only worry would be about the defensive aspect of it. Is he would have had to do a lot of defending, and that's just not his game. It's probably not the game I would be throwing him into just yet. I mean, maybe late on, but he needs some minutes in potentially these European games as well. But again, they've got to get a result. That's the thing. You've got to secure that top 8 place, so you don't end up with that daft playoff round, which they really could do without right now.
Yeah, 100%. Something else from yesterday. This is regarding ENIC, Spurs' owners. They've increased their holding slightly in the club with a capital share allotment of 11.7 million. The percentage of their ownerships increased slightly by 0.33%. So it's now 86.91. It was 86.58 before. I think you were saying earlier this news was completely buried on Spurs' website.
It was unbelievable. It popped up on Company's House that there'd been this allotment of shares, and it's like, right, okay, because they have to announce that. On the day of the North London Derby, it was unfortunate. And then I kind of started to look around the website to see what that meant, and I found it absolutely buried in this section, which was under investor relations and then under shareholder information. It wasn't like a news release. It was just part of the kind of Q&A bit about the investors and the shareholder information. And it was within there. And it mentioned that this kind of little reflects shares allotted in December 2024 in respect of operational expansion. Which I'm sure, well, I know, went down really well with the fan base. It was greatly appreciated, and it was just a huge thing. No, of course it wasn't. And this is the problem, isn't it? There's just this kind of real, like, just apathy, I suppose, or anger in some circumstances towards the lack of progress on the pitch, on the day for that to come out on the day of a North London derby and a defeat in a transfer window where they've only bought one young goalkeeper and neglected other areas of the squad that really needed help. It probably wasn't the news that everyone was looking for, that they've even just slightly increased their share of the club. I mean, some more cynical people have suggested that it's an easier way of, if you wanted to sell a club, to have more control of that club and more shares in the club. I think seemed to be that it raised £11.7 million in capital. So, I mean, technically that almost pays for Kinski, doesn't it? It's not really something. It's not a huge amount of money, but still, or you could put it towards the first instalment of someone else if they want to sign someone. But yeah. It's the interest, the breakdown of ENIC's share is an interesting one as well. So 70.12% of their share is owned by the trust of that Joe Lewis's family members end up getting, while 29.88% of their share is owned by Daniel Levy and his family's. It's really complicated. It would be easy to say owned by Levy and his family, but actually it's Levy and his family are potential beneficiaries of a discretionary trusts which own that. Everything's wrapped up in all these trusts and things like that. It's so like, it just feel like at other clubs there's this really obvious, easy, like that person's the owner, that group are the owner, whatever. With ENIC, it's everything's in trusts and things like that. I don't know whether that makes things easier or harder to operate. I don't know. But ultimately, they need to do more. They do. For everything off the pitch that has been done on the pitch just hasn't moved forward. And, they're still desperately hunting a second trophy in a quarter of a century. And yeah, whether they'll manage it, we'll see. But they certainly need to be doing more on the pitch to help Postecoglou right now. Not playing. We don't want to see any of them playing. We want to see them bringing in new players.
Yeah. Moving back to matters on the pitch now, Tottenham back in action on Sunday at Goodison Park against Everton, 2 p.m. kickoff on Merseyside. Looking forward to a trip.
It's not going to be easy for people to get up there. It's a strike day again, I think, and the trains are very few and far between. I think there'll be a lot of people having to make that long drive up there. I do like Goodison Park. I know, obviously, you're moving out of there, but it's got a bit of a White Hart Lane vibe about it for me, albeit with a far tighter press box, which is going to be a bit of a squeeze for us all. But I think Spurs are just going to have to hope that whatever David Moyes hopefully does for you guys in fixing you hasn't happened yet, and maybe you won't have had enough time on the training pitches. That would be good. There is a little bit more of a respite in terms of, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for both teams to recover. So you would hope there's not too many tired legs, but then I guess, yeah, that was only Monday and Tuesday, wasn't it, between the cup ties and this for Spurs? So maybe that extra day plays a little bit of a difference. It's just such a big game. He's got to get his team selection spot on, and it would be great if you guys continue to struggle. I think you're the only one whose record is probably worse than Spurs right now. One of the few. I think I looked up, isn't it? One win in the Premier League since mid-October, I think.
Probably, and that was 4-0 against Wolves, start of December. I think looking at the league table earlier, I think we've only scored 15 this season, which is horrific.
That's what I mean. That's the difference, isn't it? Not to say that you guys are going to get relegated. I do think Moyes is going to sort you out, but that's the problem, isn't it, when you can't score goals?
Yeah, so I'd be pretty certain if Spurs can score 2 goals, Spurs will win.
Okay.
Because I can't see us scoring 2, but let's see what happens, and let's see what we're talking about on Monday on the pod.
Oh, we're going to be talking about that now, aren't we? You've put that out into the world. We're going to be talking about the 2 goals that Everton scored.
Well, Everton's record against Spurs at Goodison is horrendous recently, over the past decade. The last win was December 2012. We scored 2 goals in last minute to win 2-1. Jelavic scored the winner. We beat Spurs in the Cup, the 5-4, when Ancelotti was manager. I think was it Jose at the time?
Was that?
Probably.
No, was that the Harry Winks special?
Yeah, it was that one.
When he came on and had probably one of the worst sub appearances.
Yeah, and then the only other recent win was 1-0 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think that was COVID season after COVID season. There was no one in the ground. So yeah, but just looking at the past 5 results at Goodison, they've all been draws. Yeah. In order, it's gone 1-1, 2-2, 0-0, 1-1, 2-2. So 0-0 this weekend. This will be the first Spurs 0-0 for ages.
Spurs need more. They need
Yeah.
more. They need to go there and win.
But
Everton-
in those draws,
yeah,
Everton have scored last minute equalisers in 3 of the 4 scoring draws.
okay, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
It was the scene of my first ever reporting on Spurs, Goodison Park.
Yeah, the 1-1, Barkley
was.
free kick and Lamella.
Lamella header. Yes. Yeah, 2016 August. Yep. So hopefully it's not a dramatic match for different circumstances all these years on. It just needs to be a win. It does. It does. It's just so frustrating that I can kind of see what Postecoglou wants to do. We've seen it in games, and we know the football they can play. And then the irony is that they did do what kind of I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, adapt and adapt and be defensive if you haven't got the thing." They actually didn't mean to be, but they were sitting back and being defensive last night, and it just doesn't work for them. It really doesn't. They're better when they're trying to go for it, in my view. And hopefully they come out fighting on Sunday and try to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game because it's one Everton need to win as well. Last night against Villa, not great at all, really. Very similar to the final few months of Sean Dyche's Everton reign. Not really a lot of change. But then again, David Moyes has only had a couple of days with the players on the training pitch, and I'm sure he'll have learned quite a bit about last night, his players, what he can expect from them over the coming months, but just really struggling in terms of creativity, and that's clear to see with only 15 Premier League goals this season. Not good enough.
Can they bring anyone in before the weekend? Is that likely? Because he'll want signings.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a bit tight now for someone to play because the deadline would be Friday midday for a new signing to be involved. New signings need to happen, and I'd be very surprised if someone's in before the weekend. I mean, there's talk of Willian.
I was going to say I saw him linked, and he's caused Spurs problems over the years. That would just be Spurs' luck.
Yeah, so it's going to be a tight game. They always are at Goodison. They're always decent games between the sides, but from a Tottenham perspective, Spurs have to win because, I mean, there's no guarantee in the following Premier League game against Leicester. I mean, they're really struggling at the moment, but go back to the start of November, you'd have put your house on Spurs beating Ipswich, giving Ipswich a storm at the time, and then Ipswich went and won. So there's definitely no guarantees in the Premier League when it comes to Spurs, but just got to get a win somewhere.
They do. It's it's not a good time right now, and it's just so mad that like the wins have been such highs, and the lows and the losses have been such lows. They've just been dreadful, some of them. But they've just got to get through this period. I do genuinely believe that they can just get through this period, get a couple of players in, get a couple of players back, and then suddenly I think the momentum comes. But they need to get to that stage, and it's just proving so difficult for them right now.
In terms of the team, then, expecting any changes?
I think you probably bring in Maddison. I think Maddison probably, like I said, I don't think it was great when he came on, but I do think you probably need the fresh legs in there.
For Sarr, then maybe, or
probably
Bissouma?
Sarr. I don't think Sarr's been great recently. I didn't think Bissouma was great either, but maybe it's Bissouma, Maddison, and Bergvall. I mean, it's a tough ask on Bergvall because he was doing pitch long runs throughout the game last night. But maybe an 18-year-old's legs recover that a little bit quicker than other people's as well, especially with the 3 days off. I think they got today off just to kind of rest and recover completely. That's probably the 3 I would go. Johnson didn't do anything to kind of get another opportunity to kind of start. Yeah, I think that's probably what you go for. Richarlison's not ready yet to start. Whether Sonny, do you have to play him as his captain, or is he? It's difficult because he scored the goal, but the rest of his game wasn't great. What would you do with the front 3?
If Richarlison was fit and if he'd played at Tamworth, then you'd probably look at starting him, because I think they
If
need
he
to
played at
have
Tamworth, he'd probably be injured right now, though, to be honest.
probably if Tamworth had a grass pitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they need a bit more fight, physicality in there, and I don't think Son's form's been good enough at all. But I imagine it'll be Son, Decky, and Solanke, even though Decky and Solanke could both do with a rest at some point soon.
Well, this is it. Does he bring in Johnson? Does he give one of them a rest just purely, and that's how Johnson gets in?
Maybe, but then again, does he do that against Hoffenheim on Thursday night?
Isn't it? This is it. Do you just say to them, go one more time, lads, and then I'll try and rest a few? But then does that also put you into problems at Hoffenheim, a game that you kind of need to win? I think they need 4 points from these 2 games, I think.
I'd probably say they need 6, to be honest.
Europa?
Well, I'd certainly be aiming for 6. I wouldn't be chancing it with 4.
I don't think Spurs go anywhere thinking that we'll get a point out of this. But I think people are working out, and I think 4 would do it. I think, because don't Rangers and United play each other, so that's 1.
Yeah,
I think, but I could be completely wrong. But I shouldn't be overhearing and listening to people's conversations in the media room at the Emirates. Yeah, it's and you can't even change it up much at the back, can you? I think the back 4 has to remain the same.
I think it's
choices.
Just in midfield, like you said. Probably Maddison comes in, front 3 probably stays the same for now. But I think with Richarlison, might get half an hour. He just got to keep up in his minutes, and then bring him into the 11. I think at some point soon. Unless
Decky comes back into midfield give Lucas the rest just purely because he's played so much, having not played, I don't know, but I wouldn't take him out of the team right now because I think he's been one of their best players.
Yeah, 100%. Right, we'll call it a day for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back early next week to discuss the Everton game and then also look ahead to the Hoffenheim game on Thursday night. So, as ever, thank you for listening, and just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/gold guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.